particularly with healing. Healing is those who work with me with healing is it brings about an absolutely wonderful environment to me for me to be aware of, and that can happen spontaneously. So particularly in just speaking to people who perhaps you've never met before, when all of a sudden I will become aware of the healing team coming around, and I may throw out the question to them, well, what is it that we're just hold the space. That's all you need to do. Maybe the response.
Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to a new episode of New Earth Awakening, your space of spiritual exploration, empowerment, and inner wisdom, where we deeply value your personal sovereignty. Today, we welcome here Sean Harvey. Welcome to the show.
Hi there. Lovely to be here.
Thanks for joining us. So, Harvey, to get us started, could you please talk a little bit about how you started in your path with spirituality?
Yeah, certainly. Well, the primary start was about 19 years ago. However, and I'll go through it a little bit more in depth after I explain it, and that about 19 years ago was when my mother passed. And I think it's quite sort of typical that a lot of people are triggered into an awareness and a journey of seeking truths, of finding themselves, finding answers when they are exposed to something that they find quite traumatic and questions their mortality. So yeah, 19 years ago when my mother passed, I embarked on quite a significant journey that has been instrumental in all of my mediumistic and other areas of development, my own spiritual awareness. But prior to that, and going back quite a number of years, when I was a child, we used to have quite a few interesting experiences occur where I was just naturally moving into an entranced state, which was of great amusement to my mother and my sisters, because I used to talk all sorts of things, speak all sorts of things, when I was just sort of half entering the sleep state. And also there were times when I was sitting and talking to people at the end of my bed, and all sorts of things that occurred. So as a teenager, I was very interested in all sorts of phenomena and the like. But as you go through and you start to show interest in other things when you're a teenager, you kind of put things to one side and you move on, and then gradually you start to question things, and then you have one of these traumatic experiences, and then it kind of kick-started, well, it certainly kick-started my interest in my spiritual development and seeking some answers. So yeah, that's a kind of like a whistle-stop tour of Sean Harvey's reason for starting out on a journey for the last 16 years, which has been focused on the passive states of trance. So,
could you please share a little bit about what you are doing now? What has happened within the last 19 years? It sounds like your heart cracked open due to this loss of your mother, transition into another plane. And so you were ready to fill this void with something new. So what happened there?
Right. Well, I think the passing of anybody that's close to you, who is, significant to you, brings about a real awareness of emotion, and physical loss. And it was something that I hadn't really had to experience before, not to the same degree as I felt with my mother's passing. And I was lost, I must admit. I just tried to keep myself occupied. I was doing the house that I live in now. I was doing that up, and it was in a sorry state at the time. But I was able to lose myself to a certain degree in that, and all I was doing was hiding from a need to recognize that I needed to address my emotions, and I also needed to find answers, because from my experiences in the past, I was aware that there was life beyond what we term death, but I had no real involvement or tutoring or structure to any of that. So on my mother's passing, I experienced another passing quite soon after that of my mother's mother. And there was a really interesting phenomena that took place, in that my sister and I were sat at my grandmother's bedside. She was gradually deteriorating. And this was at about 3 o'clock in the morning, after 7 days or so of being sat by her bedside. So 3 o'clock in the morning, it was a very dimly lit room, and I was sat with my sister. And all of a sudden, we saw a mist form in front of my grandmother's face. And then an impression of my mother's face appeared in this mist. And both my sister and I saw this, and we watched it for 90 seconds or so. And we were amazed by it. And it only disappeared when my sister turned the light on, because she was getting a little bit anxious. So anyway, the following day, when we had a bit of a break from, and one of my other sisters took over sitting with my grandmother. Bearing in mind, my grandmother was in a sleep state all the way through this thing happening. We realized that actually what we'd experienced there was physical phenomena of a spiritual nature. And it's what's known as transfiguration. You find there's a lot of confusion around transfiguration, in that people, when they experience face manipulation during the trance state, that's one thing. But proper transfiguration is an ectoplasmic mask, and the spirit world impress their faces upon it. So my grandmother, in effect, was acting as a medium for my mother to present herself. This was a big step for me to have experienced something like that. And not long after, I was inspired to ask at a local spiritualist church in Guernsey, in the Channel Islands, where I live, to see if I could join their development circle. And for various reasons, I wasn't able to join their development circle. And me being the stubborn person that I am at times, decided that that wasn't good enough. And so I decided to go off to the Arthur Findlay College in Stafford, England, which is the sort of main center for the development of mediumistic and psychic faculties in the world. It's a bit like Hogwarts for mediums. So anyway, I went to a week at the Arthur Findlay College and was absolutely astounded by and taken aback by the whole thing. Really, really loved it, and so much so that I went back there again pretty soon after, and then from there, I think it was probably the second visit where we were looking at active perceptive mental mediumship. So that's the spirit impressing upon your mind and you interpreting the impressions and you presenting those impressions to a recipient. So sort of evidential mediumship that you see demonstrations of in a lot of spiritualist churches, or on a one-to-one basis if you go for a reading and you're asking for a loved one to come forward to just give evidence of their existence and some guidance perhaps. So those were the primary focus of each of the weeks that I spent at the Arthur Findlay College. But there was also a demonstration of trance control mediumship. Trance control mediumship is mental mediumship, but it's allowing the influencing spirit to take much more control over the faculties of the medium, so that the medium is just acting really as the mouthpiece for the controlling spirit. So the personality is far more intimate, and it's presented with that personality as it is expressed through the medium, who is in a very passive state rather than an active state. So this really grabbed me anyway. So I came back from the Arthur Findlay College after seeing this, thinking, I've got to be doing that. And everybody at the Arthur Findlay College was saying, no, it's a very advanced practice. You can't be doing that. And so when anybody tells me I can't do something, I'll have a go. So I, with the help of a few friends, set up a little development circle, and also went back to the Arthur Findlay College to specifically study trance communication, and also other centres, development centres in the UK. And so that started my journey off really sort of 18, 19 years ago for my primary focus, which is on development of trance control. So, and then since then, I've been sitting and for my development, and sitting and more sitting and more sitting, because it's something that develops over time. And it's a beautiful journey, an intimate journey, because you really do get to know those who work with you and those who are there to guide you and to advise you on all manner of things and to help others as well. So, I find it's from a mediumistic perspective, that's that side of the journey. That coupled with an interest a personal interest in the way in which the mind works. I also studied clinical hypnotherapy, aromatherapy and massage, Reiki. I'm a Reiki practitioner and Reiki master teacher of Western and non-Western approaches, and with a non-Western approach, with a traditional approach to Reiki is a very spiritual practice, and there are so many parallels with spiritual and mediumistic development, moving into the power and utilizing power and being the medium for the power to help people with regards to healing. That I would recommend Reiki to anybody, but make sure you find yourself a very good teacher. And the other thing that I've done more recently is sound therapy. So which is very aligned with hypnotherapy, in that we look to move people using instrumentation. We move people into a space, a mindset where they can view issues from a slightly different mindset and different perspective that they wouldn't normally consider the problems with. So this is all about helping people. It's all about mind and the way in which the mind moves. And I think a lot of the steerage that I've had over the last 19 years has been through the communication and the guidance of those who work with me.
So it seems like you never really thought that all of this stuff was crazy out there or something, or did you have a phase in your life where you were like, okay, this is just crazy?
All the time. Yeah, all the time. There have been times when I've thought, why on earth am I doing this? And then I sit, and then I'm inspired by those who draw close, and then I realize why. When you are able to listen and to hear and to experience the influence of those who walk so closely with you, there is a bond there that makes everything worthwhile. It gives you an appreciation that life is eternal, that we are all in this together, and that to support each other, no matter how difficult people can be, to support each other is the way forward. And just sitting down for 10 minutes sometimes to remind yourself that is such an important thing. The relationship that you build with those who work with you is just so profoundly beautiful that, quite selfishly, I would say that I would live the last 19 years again, and all the study, all the sitting, all the challenges, all the fun and games, all the traumas, I'd do it all again, just purely on the basis, from a selfish perspective, it is such a beautiful experience as an individual for me. But to know also that if you can share that knowledge and understanding with other people, that you can open gateways for them too, that provide them with profound changes in their lives that bring benefit. And there's this realization that we are brothers and sisters. We walk this path together, and even though our time together may be fleeting, it may only be for moments, and it may be that whoever's listening to this, they may only listen to what I have to say for 5 minutes, but hopefully the words will stay with them for eternity, because that is the sort of thing that happens. This is the relationships that we have have an impact on us that we carry with us forever. And I love that. I love that. So it brings about a responsibility with it. You know, it's not all fun and games. We do have to be responsible with the way we act and how we talk and who we and how we behave. But such a wonderful knowledge, or something that's just so wonderful to know that every word you say has a power behind it that has an impact that lasts for eternity.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. So when you talk about those who work with you so closely, who are you talking about exactly? How do you call them? Your guides, spirit, source?
Well, I just tend to call them my friends now. You know, people, it doesn't really matter that what people call those who work with them, whether they're guides, helpers, angels, whatever people are comfortable with. But they're certainly friends.
Your BFFs.
Yes, best friends. Yeah, definitely. You know, there's an old man that works with me, who works very closely with me, who joined me from pretty much from the outset of my trance development. When and he was probably one of the first to start speaking through me. What I actually found out from him about 6 years ago was that he's been with me ever since I was a young child. He presented information to me and reminded me of certain circumstances and certain things that were said that made me appreciate that he was there at that time, guiding me and supporting me. So it actually built that bond even stronger. And, you know, I have every aspect of my being trusts him. So when working with him in the trance state, he looks after me, and I know that. And so it's a fantastic relationship that we have. I love him to bits, and he tells me off, and we have conversations, and it's just fabulous. If you could imagine the best friend ever, this old gentleman is that best friend. He knows me better than I know myself.
Beautiful. So could you please tell us a little bit about like your own development, the development that you went through, recognizing your emotions, your feelings, and embarking on this new path, listening to your heart first instead of being all the time in the head?
Yeah. It, having been brought up as the only boy in a family with three sisters, and my parents separated when I was quite young, so I was the man of the house kind of thing when I was about 12, 13. I think it kind of toughened me up a little bit, and I didn't show much in the way of emotion. And so when it came to these sort of traumatic experiences occurring, I would be very closed. And so this journey with the trance control has been an interesting one in that there's a need or there's a desire from those who work with me in the spirit world to open my emotional side up, particularly to be able to work with communication, whereby those who do draw close and influence will bring with them a lot of emotion. And I need to be able to cope with that. I need to be able to understand what it means, and I need to then be able to deal with it. Else I will interfere with the communication. So my own personal challenges there were very evident when my mother passed, in that it impacted all sorts of things in my life at that time. It impacted my career to a degree. It impacted my relationships quite significantly at the time. I withdrew from a lot of things that I was doing, but also then it opened up other avenues where I started to move in slightly different groups of people, sort out different pieces of information, and began to explore and think more deeply, I suppose, on subject matter that enabled my heart to open somewhat more, and to have an appreciation that an expression of emotion is actually a beautiful thing. So, to be able to then, that there was always a barrier, because opening up and sharing some of my most innermost feelings felt like I was exposing myself, and there's a fragile element to that. It's very scary, it's frightening, particularly if you're not used to it. And again, I think working with the development of spirituality, there's a balance of, you're bringing up a level of sensitivity that is quite frightening. But if you can develop that with an awareness of those who work with you and who support you and who guide you, then you have companions along your pathway that are holding your hand, that you can trust, that you will understand that they are there. And when you do feel fragile, they will be your concrete. They will be that piece of steel or iron that can support you. So, yeah, my journey's been quite a balancing act. And I think I've got, although the old man is even talking to me now, no, you haven't yet. Even though I think I probably have a good handle, a good control of my emotion, and still now being able to express myself quite amicably, they're telling me that I still got a long way to go yet. Which is quite interesting, because and I think that is because for about the last 6 or 7 years, they have been working on developing and opening my emotional element to my development, through all sorts of manner of things, through sound, through aromas, which is one of the reasons why I think I was drawn to the aromatherapy and sound therapy, and just generally through the way in which the mind works, working with others who are going through quite traumatic experiences or challenging experiences, with say the hypnotherapy. So it's being alert to the fact that most people have some real challenges in their lives, and that they are vulnerable. They have this vulnerability about them, and to experience that and to bring about some comfort and some support within that vulnerable environment, show some compassion in itself, is bringing out an expression of emotion from myself and an understanding of emotional content. So I see it that they've been steering in the background, and I've just been on the ride with them, and they're helping me out. And it sounds like I've still got quite a bit of work to do.
So, welcome, old man, to the show. He just announced himself. So that means actually that while we're talking, you have them right there, available, on point, guiding you, directing you. Is this very fluid for you? Is this some kind of embodiment that you can bring forth?
It is, yeah. It's something that has developed over time now. Initially, I would have to move. I'd have to do loads of sort of sitting quietly for 10, 15, 20 minutes, and then invite them to step forward. But then there's this realization where actually they don't have to step forward. They're already there. It's me that needs to open and be receptive. And the more you engage with that process, that opening up, and that development of sensitivity and an appreciation that you are already connected, then it becomes far more fluid. Very much so. So the conversation is more or less similar to the conversation that you and I could have now, particularly with the old man. Others slightly different, who perhaps have less of a strong influence over me, but I am alerted to the fact when they move close, particularly with healing. Healing is those who work with me with healing is it brings about an absolutely wonderful environment to me, for me to be aware of, and that can happen spontaneously. So particularly when just speaking to people who perhaps you've never met before, when all of a sudden I will become aware of the healing team coming around, and I may throw out the question to them, well, what is it that we're just hold the space? That's all you need to do, maybe the response. And that's all we do. So we just, they are our guides, they are our helpers, they're our best teachers, by the way. You can go on all sorts of courses and work with all sorts of very experienced mediums, but your best teachers are those who work with you, your friends in the spirit world.
Thank you, Sean. So how do you move into this very special trance state? Could you guide us through the process? And you might also want to, go into the process yourself, because maybe the old man would like to join us and speak to us, to the audience.
Yeah, certainly. Well, perhaps if I just talk you through initially how I would do this, and how I share this with others when they, when I lead development groups. There are two two sides to the development, really, that I would suggest, and I would recommend that if anybody is looking to develop trance control mediumship, that they look at sitting in the power and they look at sitting to blend. They're two slightly different practices. One is about self, and the other one is about blending with the spirit world. The one that's about self, the sitting in the power, is about recognizing your own spirit consciousness, okay, and having an appreciation that that spirit consciousness is connected to everything. And I don't want to get anybody hung up on the word or term of God. I mean, it doesn't have to enter down into any religious direction as such, but there is a force within nature, whether it be called God, whether it be called universal energy, whether it be called chi or ki, whatever. There is a power within the universe, and you are connected to that power. That power runs through you, it ignites you. It is the spirit that's within you, the spirit consciousness. And so there's practices for becoming aware of that you are all powerful. If you can harness that and hold that power, it brings about a steady state. And on that steady state, it can assist you to develop your blending with the spirit world. Because when you start to blend with the spirit world, as they start to influence you and you start to receive these little bits of information that are impressed upon you, and that may be through visions, it may be through sound, it may be through smells or tastes, or just emotions or sensations. As soon as you get one, or you become aware of one, you become engaged with it. And as soon as you become engaged with it, you become active. And so you then move into a different type of mediumship rather than the trance control mediumship, which is very passive. So what I'm looking to do when I'm sitting is to initially engage with my spirit consciousness, recognize that I am connected to this all-encompassing power, the God force, the universal energy, whatever you want to call it. But to recognize that that power is within me, it supercharges me, and that my power is limitless. Okay, so that's the first step. The second step is to invite the spirit world to join me, to influence my spirit consciousness. And there are a couple of ways that you can go from there. So you can go active or you can remain passive. And with the trance control state, we remain passive. So we allow the influence to come in and to work with our minds and to express themselves through our faculties. So through the voice, through expression, whether it be hands or facial expression. We leave it up to them. Their impression comes from the spirit consciousness to the spirit consciousness, through the mind, through the brain, and is expressed through the physicality of the medium. So that whole process, when you're starting out, can take quite some time firstly to develop, but also to actually go through that process and feel comfortable that when the influencing mind comes in, that you don't engage with it too much so that it distracts you and you become active rather than passive, and so it stops the whole thing. So it's really actually quite a complicated thing, and that's just our side. The spirit world have got their side to deal with. They've got an awful lot their end to try and resolve, to be able to make a communication. So what I can do, though, is I can talk you through me doing it. And we can invite the old man to join us for a few minutes, and maybe he can share a few words. Is that,
Of course.
okay? Yeah.
Thank you.
So let's have a go. So incidentally, I've done some Facebook live presentations that go through those processes. And there are some demonstrations of moving in and moving out of the passive state for mediumship. And also some examples of the old man discussing things and sharing knowledge and understanding. But we'll invite to see if he wants to step forward. I think he's quite interested in sharing something to perhaps to your audience and to yourself, Carol. Okay, so right. So in my mind, I will be inviting the spirit world to join me now, but to also invite my own spirit consciousness to promote itself, to step forward, and for it to become more dominant than my active mind, my active waking state consciousness. So you might find that my words become a little bit clumsy shortly, but I'll try to I will try to give you an indication on what I'm doing. So I'm moving into a much more passive state and becoming more aware now of my spirit consciousness and its presence. Now, it's really important for us to understand what it feels like to be us before an influencing presence makes itself known, because otherwise we don't know there's a difference. So we do need to be aware of how it feels to be us. Right, as I'm breathing now, I'm using my breath to expand my consciousness outward. There's numerous ways to do this. It's a bit like blowing up a balloon, or you can imagine that there's a light within you, and on every in-breath, so that light gets brighter and brighter, and it expands out and expands out through every pore in your body, expands out into the room, expands out beyond the room. Out into the universe. So what's happening now is your awareness of the physical form starts to fall away. And the freedom of the spirit consciousness becomes evident. The next stage to this is becoming aware of your connection to all that there is. Recognizing that the power of the universe flows through you and is within you. So within you, God dwells. The ultimate power is within you. Knowing that provides you with a stable environment in which you can just bathe. You can just stay and enjoy that experience on its own. So this is purely my spirit consciousness blending with all that there is, and at one-ment. So that is the practice of sitting in the power. From this place, we can either return to full waking consciousness, and we can do that just through utilizing the breath, an awareness of the in-breath and the out-breath, an awareness that our in-breath and the out-breath is coursing through our bodies. And as we take slightly deeper in-breaths and out-breaths, we can feel the movement in our physical form, bringing us back to an awareness of our waking state. Alternatively, in that place, that awareness of our own spirit consciousness and its connection to all that there is, we can extend an invitation out to those who work with us in the spirit world. So just bear with me now as I do that, or it will become challenging for me as those who work with me begin to embrace and influence. Yes, thank you. My dear, it is with great pleasure that we address you and those who are prepared to listen to the ramblings of an old man. Just briefly for the few moments that we have together. The boy has shared with you some of his experiences. We would add that his journey has just begun. That which we have addressed with him and that which lay before him are a mere blink of an eye in the eternal journey. That said, all influence that is recognized, all love that is shared, all expression, those prayers and wonderful thoughts are all of immense value. If there is one thing that we can share with those who are prepared to listen, it is to hold the hand of your brothers and sisters for this journey that you embark on. The journey of the physical form is the utmost of challenges. There will be those who tread a steady path, and there will be those with mountains to climb. But to reach out and find a hand to stabilize is a gift of love that cannot be expressed in words, but will be shared across all time. Take care of one another, and all will be well. God bless you.
God bless you. Thank you.
Gradually, as the presence releases their influence on my mind, I find myself coming through or traveling through layers of consciousness. And sometimes that brings with it visions, sounds, words, feelings. Sometimes not. But it's an enjoyable experience moving back up or coming back through those layers of consciousness, and very much part of the whole experience. So did you like that? Was that all right? Was that okay?
That was awesome. Thank you very much for sharing that.
I know the old man was quite excited. He still is, actually. He's got a big smile on his face now. I can feel that. I can feel the joy within him. He's happy. So I think
Well, same here.
yeah. But hopefully that gives you a bit of an insight into the blending side of things. So you've got this sitting in the power, and then there's this blending. So we move into our power, and then we invite the spirit world from this passive state of spirit consciousness to come and join us. And when we're there, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to speak. It can just be an influence comes around you, it calms you down, and maybe some healing is taking place. Maybe there's some guidance. Maybe you hear a small voice. Maybe you just know that something is happening. But it's just to sit and to blend is just a wonderful thing to do. I find it very challenging to find the words to describe how blissful, how intimate, when the spirit world joins you like so closely, how wonderful it actually is. And it's only because we become really active and we say, oh, that's really interesting, that things fall away again. So it's this business of being able to, or the practice of being able to sit passively and allowing things to arise without getting too hooked on them, too hung up on them. Just allow them to arise, register that they've happened. In acknowledging and registering that they have happened, the spirit world recognized then that they have been acknowledged. So that's the conversation that starts. That's your rapport. Okay, thank you for that. And what if this happens? Okay, thank you for that. Okay, I'm experiencing this feeling. Thank you for that. Okay. There's all sorts of things you can do. It's like being in a room with someone. It's wonderful, absolutely wonderful. I would just recommend it to everybody to have some level of understanding that there is so much more available for support, for guidance, for help in this world from the other world than you could ever imagine. So I hope that gives you some insight into the crazy world of Sean Harvey.
The crazy world that we live in. You know, I tend to say crazy is the new sane. We have been embarking into this new earth,
Yeah.
into this new journey to bring more of our higher selves forth into the living plane. So if you would close your eyes right now and travel in time, wake up in 2050, you would open your eyes. What is it that you would see or hear or whatever?
Well, I honestly believe that we've got a lot of youngsters coming into this world who are going to change this world in a significant way. I really do. There's a lot of sensitive children that are being born who are very, very aware. And I think it's far more acceptable that those who are sensitive to influences that aren't necessarily tangible, so they're spiritual in nature, in their nature. It's more acceptable socially now that those children who are being inspired by influences beyond this physical world will bring about the potential for much greater harmony than we see at the moment. Technology has provided us with all sorts of wonderful benefits, and lots of challenges, obviously. You know, we're more alerted to disasters and problems throughout the whole of the world. The influence of these youngsters that are coming through, and there's a lot that are in their teenage years already, you know, not just talking about the ones that are just being born, but there's a group in the middle there who are going to potentially change this world for the better. I do hope. I would like to wake up in 2050. I'd like to wake up in 2050.
Oh, yeah.
I want to get there. I do want to get there.
I'll be there right by your side.
I do want to get there, but I would hope that people have learnt lots of lessons through technology, through the ability to communicate from one side of the planet to the other using technology, to be aware of issues as they arise, and to place thought to those issues that's constructive, that's loving, that's caring, that's supportive, that sees beyond the need for power, that sees a need to embrace and to show compassion and support and to deal with things on a much more humane level rather than the power hungry level. Now, I know that we've had wars for sorry about that. We've had wars for ever since man was on this planet, I'm sure, because there's always been a desire for power and leadership and exerting power over others, greed and ego and all that. And ego will always be there, I'm sure. But the levels of compassion, I think, will shift. I really do hope in 2050 we will have a similar sort of conversation, and we will be saying, well, back then, we had things going on in Gaza, we had things going on in Ukraine and Russia, we had, and other problems around the world, not just wars, but famine and disasters, natural disasters. And even on our own doorsteps, people struggling, people alongside us, sat in doorways, no money, no roof over their head, that sort of thing. It makes you wonder why that is occurring nowadays. There's absolutely no reason for it. I just feel as though those who are coming into this world now and those youngsters are being influenced to the better, for the betterment of this planet. And they will stand up and intervene against war, against famine, against challenges that are generated through power and greed. I just think that that's the way the things are going. Some of the youngsters that come to some of the groups that I take are very considered in their approach and very sensitive. And we can put labels on some of that sensitivity, medical labels. There seems to be a greater degree of autism and things like that are prevailing within children of late. But those children have have different qualities that need to be explored, that they can bring to this world and take it off in a direction that it needs to go in. There's an evolution. We just don't stand still. Every day is different. Every breath is different. And it's a changing place. And I think it's quite exciting in some ways that these changes, and we can be part of that evolution, that change. And it's things like this, the sharing knowledge and understanding and sharing. We're just taking people to a gate on a footpath, and they can either open that gate and look at the new horizon and go off in their own direction, or they can stand behind that gate and look down the footpath in that direction. Or there's another gate down there, I'm going to go and have a look at that one. We open doors through sharing our knowledge and understanding, and if it's given with love and compassion and support, and then it brings light to people, and that's how it should be. And I think these youngsters are going to do that. I just hope so anyway. I really do. And I will be sending prayers. And if you don't like the term prayer, just send positive thoughts. because it's the same thing.
Thank you, Sean.
You're
Thank
more
you
than
for
welcome.
joining us today. You're very appreciated.
It's been absolutely fabulous. Thank you for having me. And I'd be most willing to come back and share some more experiences with you at some time in the future.
Well, we will have you back.